Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. It's time to hear from the top Christian litigators in the nation who have come forward to tell us the truth and help us defend our faith.
Hear ye, hear ye. All rise. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Manno, is in session.
Welcome once again to Faith on Trial. We examine the influence of law and society on people of faith. I'm Deacon Mike Manno, your host, and I'm here with Gina, Noll, our co-host, sitting with us in our main studios for Iowa Catholic Radio, right here in West Des Moines, Iowa.
Happy to be here, Deacon Mike. Neither of us were just discussing how a little bit tired. We still haven't caught up from our sleep on election night. It's only Thursday morning as we record this for the weekend show.
Yeah, and it was an interesting election, especially since the pollster for the Des Moines Register had it going the other direction.
Yeah, I was okay until that poll came out, and then I was really concerned because Ann Seltzer has always been so good at being kind of maybe an outlier, but really a truth teller, and that was so far off.
She nailed Trump's victory in
2016, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I know you mentioned that you had family calling you or texting you about that poll, wondering what's going on in Iowa.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine from law school text us from Arizona, wanting to know what in the hell is going on in Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
and so we had to tell him that it was probably an outlier. But
I didn't really believe that it was an outlier at the time, only because the airwaves were just flooded with ads for relating to abortion, and I think that was a true draw to especially the female segment of the voting population. And I thought, oh my gosh, those ads really did affect the vote here. But as it turns out, it didn't really happen.
Yeah, I was a little concerned too, because I was concerned most of the way through the election, but I've always felt, and I wrote this in one of my columns in The Wanderer, that what would happen probably is that the undecideds, the ones sitting on the fence, would all break late and all break pretty much in the same direction, and apparently that's what they did. Okay. Because the magnitude of this victory, if you look at the raw numbers, is something we haven't seen recently from a Republican candidate.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some of that today.
We'll talk about some of that,
yeah. Following it all over the country.
Yeah, we're going to talk to Logan Church again from Catholic Vote, and she's going to talk about how this is going to affect what happens to religious liberty and the principles of religious liberty throughout the country that we've been fighting for all these years. And we've saw a lot of slings and arrows come our way, especially with the DOJ the way it is right now, the Department of Justice. And see what Logan says might change, because we know there's going to be a new Attorney General, that's for sure.
And Catholic Vote has been around for a number of years, 10, 15 years, but I really see them gaining momentum, support, and influence in the political process. So I'll be anxious to find out from Logan how many of the races they were involved in, where their money was played out, and how the votes came to fruition.
Yeah, they even had ads on television.
Yeah, did they have them here in Iowa?
Yes, I saw a couple of them.
That's great.
Yeah. I'm not sure that they were aimed for Iowa. I think they may have just been carried by a cable network.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll be real curious to see how some of their efforts with people on the ground and ads over the air came to fruition on some of the issues.
You'd have to say they were fairly successful. The way the election turned out. All right, and then we're going to have our old friend Brad Dacus from the Pacific Justice Institute. He was one of our very first guests. As a matter of fact, I was looking through our archives here the other day. He was on our first live program on October 22nd, 2013.
Wow. Yes, Brad has been such an advocate for religious freedom.
He has.
Starting at the West Coast and now all across the country.
Right.
And the attorneys that are affiliated with his organization are super smart and very successful. And we can all be thankful for that.
Right, and since we're moving toward our last program here, which will be next month, this may be the last time we have them on our program.
Well, you can always follow. We'll find out how we can continue to
Well,
follow
that's
him
right.
with
We
or
will do
without
that.
Faith on Trial.
Do you have a prayer to open us up with?
I do. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Prayer for peace today. God of peace, bring your peace into our violent world. Peace in the hearts of all men and women, and peace among the nations of this earth. Turn to your way of love those whose hearts and minds are consumed with hatred. Strengthen us in hope, and give us the wisdom and courage to work tirelessly for a world where true peace and love reign among the nations and in the hearts of all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Gina. We will be right back after these messages with Logan Church from Catholic Vote. You're listening to Faith on Trial on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. Still sleepy here this morning. All right.
We'll be right back.
And we're back. You're listening to Faith on Trial on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network, and we have with us right now Logan Church from CatholicVote.org. And Catholic Vote was involved in this election that we just went through. And some of us just suffered through with all the commercials on the TV. But now that it's over, and it's been pretty much, from Catholic vote and our view, pretty much a success. We've done pretty well, and one of the people responsible is Logan, and she is with us right now. And Logan, what do you think? Just your overall impression of the election and what happened on Tuesday?
Yeah, well, first I would say, I was sitting yesterday just overwhelmed with gratitude. And obviously, the best place to celebrate is in the chapel. And so I took it to prayer, and I think most people at Catholic Vote did the same thing, just because we really have been on the front lines, working in the field, trying to get President Trump and these other candidates down ballot elected in these swing states. And it's been a grueling several months, but, it paid off in spades. And I think that the thing that most people are looking at is he didn't just win, the election. He won the popular vote. He won there was no if, and, or buts about it. He won massively. And what does that tell you? That tells you that America was ready for this. And so I was proud to be able to be a part of it, but I am looking forward to the next 4 years.
I know you talked about being in the chapel. Our church, we had a patriotic rosary on Monday night.
Yeah, there were about 75 people
there.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
A number of people there, and the music was great. And then on Tuesday night, as the return started to come in, that's my wife and my usual evening over at the chapel, in the Adoration Chapel, and we were there, and I'm sure she was praying for the same thing I was. And the nice thing in getting our prayers answered is they were answered quickly. We didn't have an election that drug out. Now, we know there are a couple of the Senate races, I guess, that are still open, but basically the election was done on early Wednesday morning when they called Wisconsin for Trump. And we knew what was happening, and it stopped right there. So we didn't have that long-running legal battle over hanging chads or whatever they were back in the 2000 election. I guess it was the hanging chads. And so anyway, that was nice.
Logan, where were you on Tuesday night?
I was in Youngstown, Ohio, so my fiance was up on the ballot for state senate in Ohio. So I chose to hang back from West Palm and be there with him at his watch party. But I do have to admit, as we saw Amendment 4 come back in Florida, and that the pro-life side had won, I started crying, and he busted in to my war room and was like, "Is it something about my race?" And I was like, "No, actually, it's Florida." So
how did he do?
Yeah. He did good. He won by 22 points. So God is good.
They really wanted him.
Good.
That's great.
Good.
Yeah.
And what is his name, so that we know when we hear from Ohio if we're listening to somebody that we might know?
Al Catrona. So he's a great Catholic, great conservative, and soon to be my husband here in 6 months.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So our congratulations go out to you.
So Ohio was a happening place to be on election night.
It was?
You got a new senator there, yeah.
Yeah, that Senate race was one to watch. I think people were really concerned about that because, in Ohio they refer to Sherrod Brown as the Silver Fox. That's his nickname. And he's a great campaigner. I mean, Sherrod Brown truly did run a great campaign. And, the numbers don't lie. Donald Trump definitely winning by the large margin that he did in Ohio helped Bernie Moreno undoubtedly. If Trump had won by the margin he won in 2020, we would probably be having a different conversation about the Senate race. But God is good, and I'm really, really glad to see that it turned out the way that it did. I mean, overall, if you look at a lot of these states, though, if you start breaking down, I know Fox just did something on this. If you look at these states, you break down what actually made the biggest difference, other than the fact that we've seen Latinos come out for Trump, Black Americans coming out for Trump, Jewish people coming out for Trump. We also saw the Catholic vote. He received the largest Catholic vote out of any presidential candidate in 40 years, which is incredible, truly.
Well, which is just an example of the efforts that CatholicVote .org has completed across the nation over the last 18 years, really educating Catholics to the issues.
Right, and it's only beginning. I mean, I think we do have to give some credit to priests and bishops across the nation. I think a lot of them were more vocal this time than we typically see. And it does make a difference when priests are standing up and talking about the issues and not so much advocating for candidates, but advocating for issues that matter to Catholics. It's incredible. I mean, and I think I've heard a lot of priests put it really well that Donald Trump is now a flawed vessel for what God's trying to give us here in America, and I think that's a great way to put it. We're all flawed vessels for Christ's plan, and so we're grateful to see Donald Trump back in office.
Well, that's good. And what do you expect some of the first things he's going to do? Since you know him so intimately?
I think first thing, I know he's already seeking counsel with a lot of coalition leaders, such as Brian Birch at CatholicVote, and trying to figure out what do we need, who needs to be where, and what big moves do we need to make first. So I think first he's taking a breather, and then the thing I'm most excited to see is he is looking to people like Brian for their opinion, and I think that's going to pay off in spades for us.
I think it will, too. All right, just overall the election, I want to ask you this question. Political scientists say that every so often we have what's known as a critical election, where there's people redefine themselves as to what they are, and whether they're Republican or Democrat. There's sometimes in those critical elections, there's a mass change in viewpoint from one party to another. Sometimes it's just reaffirming their position. Do you see this acting as a critical election here, where maybe people are starting to change their thoughts and how they view politics?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to put it. I always joke and say it only takes swapping over once for you to be like, well, the world didn't end. I voted for a Republican and everything's okay. And so I think that, we saw that. We saw so many independents and swing voters vote for President Trump. I mean, so many. And it leads you to wonder, okay, so you voted for President Trump this time. He's going to obviously do a great job as he did in the past. A lot of these voters may actually end up staying and re-identifying with the Republican Party. And I think that's something we're going to have to watch. I mean, we'll know better in the midterm elections about how big of a swing did we truly have.
Yeah. I think the rule of thumb here is if a new voter comes in and he votes 3 times the same party in his first 3 votes, first 3 elections, that's where he's going to stay. And I think you point out correctly that we'll know this probably by the 28 election, whether we've had a critical election in 24 or not. But it looks like it might be headed that way, because I can't remember when the last critical election would have been, but it might have been in 80 when Reagan was elected.
Which, I mean, there were a lot of comparisons. If you look at the numbers from, Reagan's election and Donald Trump's election, there are quite a few similarities. And, I do think that part of it can be attributed to the fact that the Democrats have just gone so far left that your swing voters, your independent voters, they're not interested in that rhetoric and that conversation. And they try to paint Republicans as if they've done the same thing. But in all reality, if you look at even iVoterGuide.com, which is, usually one of the better nonpartisan voter guides, and they rate people on a scale of, alt-right to alt-left. It's funny because if you look, Donald Trump he's a moderate conservative. Mm-hmm. And so it is interesting when you have the Kamala camp trying to paint Trump as being some crazy radical, but then you have her supporting boys and girls sports, quite literally supporting abortion until 9 months and everything in between. It's, people don't want the extremes. That's just not the American way.
Which is funny because he is the original solid Democrat who is now a Republican, that he, right, in his lifetime.
Just like Ronald Reagan.
Right.
He makes up a huge portion of what we saw in 2016, 2020, and now 2024. These voters that don't identify with the Democrat Party anymore, don't necessarily identify with the Republican Party of Bush. And here it is. Here's a new option for them, just like with Reagan. I mean, Reagan was a union Democrat who swapped over. So,
he was the president of his union.
Yeah, he was the president of his union, which people often like to forget. I talk to Ohio Republicans, and it's always so funny because unions in Ohio are largely Republican now under Trump. But I think it's so funny because they want to love Ronald Reagan but hate on the unions. I'm like, well, hey, he was the president of his. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And I think, it is interesting.
Right. And to Mike's point, I think this critical change will continue. Not only based on the policies of the Trump administration, the new Trump administration, but some of these, the new Congress that we'll have. The Republicans in Congress need to step up and do what they've always said they wanted to do, and quickly. And I think that will change hearts and minds also.
Same with the Senate. I mean, we saw a sweep in the Senate. I mean, an impressive sweep in the Senate. And yes, there's still some up. But at the end of the day, I think that we have people in place to do great things. The question is, are they ready to do it?
Yeah. Well, and I saw that there's a race going on. I mean, there's a conversation because there's a race going on for the leadership now in the Senate. Mitch McConnell, mm-hmm. I haven't heard that he's stepping down and letting someone else run his position. Oh, he is? He did announce that? Okay, good. So you heard it here. I heard it here. So
I heard it someplace else.
A lot of the leadership, whatever they decide on the leadership, will be really influential in the way they perform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that with a lot of these people coming in, I think they're going to be hungry for something a little bit different than Mitch McConnell.
Well, I think one of the things we have to keep in mind is one of the reasons why Trump did so well this time is people saw him as an authentic person. I mean, Trump was Trump. He was who he was, and he didn't make any bones about it. And yet we see so many other politicians, and I think Kamala fell into this a bit, tried to be somebody else, tried to be somebody they weren't, and put on a different image than maybe they really were. And people caught on to that.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's one thing about the Trump campaign that I found funny. He knew that he had to appeal to certain demographics of voters. The older voters weren't where the battle was going to be. The battle was going to be with voters under the age of 30, specifically male voters under the age of 30. And I thought the way that his campaign played that in the last couple of weeks, I thought was really interesting. Like from the garbage truck jokes to, he did such a good job at making his campaign. It wasn't stiff. It wasn't rigid. It was funny. It was flexible. It was authentic. It was something that, like, as an American, you could look at, you could laugh at, you could respect. I think he did such a good job with that, and I think it paid off in spades because nobody else campaigns like that. No. I mean, they really don't. It was so different from what we typically see as this unattainable, stiff presidential campaign, and I think people like that.
People came to his rallies to see him. They came to the other rallies to see Oprah and to see whoever else is the entertainer on the stage, and that was it. They weren't coming to see Kamala. Yeah.
I was joking with some of our team. We were in Philadelphia the night that she had that big concert. I was like, let's go scope it out. Yeah. Like, let's go see what's happening.
Yeah.
See what J-Lo has to say. But then we decided they would smell the Republican on us. So we
Probably smell the incense from you coming from Latin Mass.
Smell the incense from Catholic Mass. Yeah.
So what's the future now look for religious liberty? Because we know we're going to have a new Justice Department, and they're going to do things a different way, a Trumpian way, and not a Biden way. And how's that look?
Do you think some of our prayer warriors outside the abortion clinics that have been placed in jail will be released?
Yeah, so I would start with this. The war on Catholics, I think we're going to see a ceasefire on that.
Good.
That's something that Trump campaigned on. And so it's when I say I woke up yesterday feeling unburdened by what has been, that is exactly
not to create a new phrase, huh?
Right. Yeah, but it truly is beautiful to see this new administration. When people asked months ago, how do we fight this? How do we fight this? The HHS mandates, the targeting of Catholics in Latin masses, the throwing our pro-life warriors in jail. The answer, truly, the only way to stop it was to elect Trump. That was it. That was the only answer. There were no other if and or buts about it. That is how you stop this. And so I can confidently say that we are going to see a huge shift and, a back rolling of what's been done.
Yeah. And Catholic Vote will be some of the unsung heroes in this thing, too.
Well, we're just happy to see the results. And so fret not, my Latin Mass friends. I think you're good to go to church and not be worried about the FBI targeting you.
Yeah,
and not covering up your license plate at the parking lot.
Yeah.
Hey, Logan, Catholic Vote has been involved in a lot of these races, but they've also been involved in a lot of ballot measures. Maybe you can give us some highlights about what was successful, what wasn't, where Catholic Vote was involved, what we've learned about some of the ballot measures, and the strategy to saving lives.
So you had three very different ballot measures going on. So you had Florida, where we had the 60% threshold. And so basically what that meant is the Yes campaign had to get over 60% to get something into the Constitution. And
it was very broad.
Had a little bit.
It was very broad.
And so we had that. That's what Ohio tried to do, but failed to do before the ballot initiative came on in Ohio. If we had the 16% in Ohio, we would have been successful in Ohio as well. So Florida rolling into it, we knew that we had an advantage there, but 10 points is still not necessarily a guarantee, because you look in states like Arizona where they won by 62 points. And so we had a lot of boots on the ground. And I think what Florida did really well is everyone worked together. DeSantis' team led the charge, and I'm really proud of the work that they did. Ron DeSantis made it his personal mission to defeat Amendment 4 in Florida, and he succeeded. And so we kind of plugged into his infrastructure and focused on the Catholic side of things. So that's what went really well in Florida. I would say Nebraska is a little different. There was a pro-abortion initiative on the ballot, and so the pro-lifers decided, all right, let's put a different ballot initiative on the ballot. And in Nebraska, whoever got the most votes won.
So there were two abortion measures on the Nebraska ballot.
On one ballot.
How interesting. Yeah.
So one went to 9 months and one went to 15 weeks. And so the conversation became, okay, obviously 15 weeks isn't ideal, but it's sure of a heck a lot better than 9 months. So let's get what we can get here. And so that's what they did in Nebraska. We were very, very helpful on that front. I think a note there, that's something that you're probably going to see a lot of these states like Ohio, like Kansas, saying, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. We have 9 months right now. Let's try to roll it back to 15 weeks.
So Nebraska was successful in rolling it back and not doing the...
Yes.
Okay, good.
And then finally, the one that I'm most excited about is South Dakota. South Dakota is the first pro-life ballot amendment that is just outright won. It didn't have a 60% threshold. It didn't have two ballot initiatives on there. It just outright won. We defeated the pro-choice amendment on the ballot. And so we are all going to be studying South Dakota very closely.
Well, you're doing a good job, and we know how to get a hold of you. That's CatholicVote.org. And anybody who wants to follow what you're doing or sign up to receive their daily loop or the loopcast, they can do that there. And like I say, we're running pretty much out of time, and we're going to have to let you go here. But congratulations on two things. One on your upcoming nuptial, and the other on your successful work in the last election. Just keep that up, and we hope that your husband-to-be does well in the state Senate in Ohio, and maybe we'll see his name on a congressional ballot one of these days.
God's will be done.
That's right. That's right. Well, you'll make a great first lady if you get that far.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
Thank you very much, Logan, and we will talk to you sometime in the future, we hope. Thank you for joining us.
Hello to all our friends there at Catholic Vote.
Will do.
Thank you. We're going to take a break right now. You're still listening to Faith on Trial on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network, and we will be back with Brad Dacus from the Pacific Justice Institute in just a couple of minutes. All right, welcome back. You're still listening to Faith on Trial on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network, and we have with us right now Brad Dacus, who is the president of the Pacific Justice Institute. That's pacificjustice.org if you want to find it on the web. And we have Brad with us. And Brad, we're just saying that Brad was one of our oldest guests that we've had on this program, not age-wise, but over the years that we've been on. And he was our first live guest on October 22nd, 2013. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on the program.
Yeah, well, it's always a pleasure to have you, too.
We learn so much.
You remind us of the time when we didn't have too many guests that would come on the program. We didn't know too many people, and you were on more often than we were, I think. We had you on so many times, we almost made you a co-host and started paying you royalties to come on. But all right, you had and the first thing we want to talk to you about is this humongous jury award that you received in San Francisco, of all places, over a religious liberty issue. Why don't you tell us about that?
Oh, you bet. Yeah, and I just want to say up front just how grateful I am, first off, for just to be on your program and what you've done and how many people you've impacted over the years. I know it's been a real blessing to so many. But yeah, we at Pacific Justice Institute, we have cases all over the country now, 245 in active litigation. We have 36 offices coast to coast. I know when we first started talking, we had just one office, I think, but now we're all over the country, serving people all without charge on so many issues. And one of the big issues that really we took on was helping people who were being persecuted because of their faith, not wanting to take an experimental COVID-19 vaccine, and they were losing their jobs. So we stepped in, and San Francisco, turns out, was one of the worst cities, and specifically the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit laid off about 1,000 of our employees, just flippantly, not accommodating them in any way, saying, nope, you either get the jab or you're gone, even though all the passengers coming in and out on and off these rails weren't required to be vaccinated. So it was just very illogical what they were doing. And now we know, of course, the vaccine doesn't prevent transmission at all. So it's really not even a vaccine. We've proven that in court and used it. So these people were fired. We've got many of them settled, many settled. But we still had a few who were still holding out, wanting to take this to court. And so we did. And after almost 3 years of litigating, the jury came out and ruled in their favor. This is a San Francisco jury. It's not a nice, good jury in the Midwest that's necessarily level-headed, but
we're all level-headed out here, Brad.
I know. So exactly. Well, these the jury had all been vaxxed themselves, so we thought, oh no, this is going to be hard to convince them all that that implicitly that they may have done the wrong thing, and trying to get them to accommodate people who had religious convictions and calling not to take the vax. Well, as it turns out, they came back unanimously, ruling that BART did not try to reasonably accommodate these people, which they're required to do under Title VII for their religious beliefs and convictions. And then they came back again and said unanimously, and by the way, these people did have sincere religious convictions that should have been accommodated. And they gave economic damages, but they also slapped on an extra $1 million per person. So it was $7.8 million legal earthquake, if you will, 7.8.
For 6 people.
For 6 people. And it was a huge hit that the city of San Francisco was not expecting. And but it sent shockwaves, without a doubt, across the country to other cities and municipalities where we have lawsuits taking place as we speak. And we're hoping that there'll be a lesson here to take religious freedom seriously and people with faith seriously, and not just purge them willy-nilly, if you will, from their jobs and think they're going to get away with it.
It sounds to me like the case actually helps define our religious exemptions, what it truly means, and how it should be handled.
Yeah, it really did. And so employers, all throughout the pandemic, they were just flippantly firing people.
Correct.
Not even sitting down, not even talking with them, saying, okay, here's how can we accommodate you? Can we have you work from home during this time, or can we have you do this, or wear a mask, or whatever? It was just very unreasonable. Whirlpool, we have a lawsuit against them. We took on Amtrak successfully. We took on Ascension Health, hospitals, for defendant police officers, doctors, nurses, just a whole host of people across the country. We're defending them right now, and since this victory, we've actually seen more people actually contact us. And unfortunately, for some, the statute of limitations has expired. You can't just, wait several years, generally speaking. But for others, there turns out there's still room for them to be able to file, and we're taking all these cases on all across the United States without charge.
Yeah, now one of the things you just mentioned there that we should point out, and like many other organizations in your same situation, you don't charge any of your clients for what you're doing. And we all know litigation can be very expensive. And so the cost of that litigation really comes from donations to Pacific Justice and to these other institutions that are doing this. And so that's why we recommend that people who might have some spare change in their pocket, and it looks like with the Trump administration coming in, they may have more spare change after the beginning of the year, but whatever spare change you have that you want to put to a good cause, Pacific Justice is a good place to put it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but I know charitynavigators.com, I believe it is, objectively looks at nonprofits, and they give us the highest rating. We at Pacific Justice Institute, the highest rating for their assessment of efficiency and integrity, transparency, and we're really glad that we have that so people get the biggest bang for the buck in terms of defending religious freedom, parents' rights, and the sanctity of human life when they support our ministry. And they can go to pji.org, pji.org. It's a real easy way to connect and support our work. Or they can also text, by the way, for those high-tech people out there. They can text PJI, just those 3 letters, to the number 71541, 71541. And I always remember that as a 71-year-old man having lunch with a 54-year-old woman, and there's a 1-year-old in the high chair. 71541. So that's how I remember it.
Good way to remember it.
There's no faces with those numbers, is there, Brad?
No, that's the number we were given. So I
love it.
Try to come up with something to remember it. But yeah, 71541. Just text PJI, and they can become a part of what we're doing, get updates, and which is so important because we want people to pray for our work because it's a spiritual battle. I see this more and more than ever what a spiritual battle it is, not just a legal battle. It's a huge spiritual battle. And the good news is that the rapture hasn't happened. God's still on the throne, and he is still granting us favor and grace in our cases, helping people, particularly who are in the body of Christ.
Well, and then one of the other things is that a lot of these cases that deal with religious liberty aren't covered by the press. I mean, people are not realizing that we're actually winning a lot of these cases.
That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why. So reason I so appreciate you guys is exactly right. The media often doesn't cover these. In fact, the good news is that so far this year, I think we have a record number of victories in 1 year. We've had better than a 90% success rate in our cases this year, which is incredible. It's miraculous that you have that high of a success rate in litigation, taking on cases that are cutting edge, which ours often are. So it's been very encouraging. And I do want to say, with President Trump's victory and the Senate victory and the House of Representatives, that we're going to see incredible opportunities for several reasons. One is we're going to have more judges appointed, I believe, to the Supreme Court, as well as on down in the circuit courts, the federal district courts, which is going to give us more favor in terms of the constitutional rights we're defending. But also the Department of Justice and the FBI, they're going to be cleaned out. So they're no longer going to be, our enemies going after pro-lifers who are praying in front of abortion clinics, which is what they do now. They're on a witch hunt to go after everyone they can, and they're not using the FACE Act to defend churches. No, they're using it to try to put elderly woman behind bars for up to 11 years. So we're going to have a new Department of Justice, a new FBI. A new FBI is not looking to treat parents as domestic terrorists who raise their voice at school board meetings, which is what they're on the record of trying to do. It's very evil and dastardly, some of the things that we've seen, and these are going to be changed, and it's going to really help us in our litigation to have them on our side instead of on the side of tyranny. And so we're really looking forward to that just from the court legal side. And then we're also, good news, we're working on legislation at the state level that a lot of these legislation could also be adopted now on the federal level. For example, we got 6 states to pass a law that says, hey, you let boys can't go into girls' locker rooms when the girls are there naked and the boy's stripping off his clothes in front of them. You can't do that. And the boy can't compete in the girls' sports. No, that's not allowed in Idaho. It's not allowed in Utah and some of these states. So we've got 6 states to pass that, and we've gotten other states to pass reform like school vouchers. And I think that we can really see these accelerated on a federal level now to really improve parental rights, religious freedom, and the sanctity of human life protections. And we're very excited about that.
That's great. That's great. Now, what is the makeup now of the California legislature after the election here? Is it still overwhelmingly Democrat?
Yes, it is still overwhelmingly Democrat. And one of the reasons is because it's pretty much Democrat 3-2 in this state. If we had enough people of faith registering, it could be overcome. There's enough Christian voters out there that, if they registered, all of them registered, they all voted, it could be changed. But as far as just the population goes and those who are presently registered, it's about a 3-2 margin. And the only way that can be made up, it can be made up is 2 ways as I see it. Number one is having a much higher voter turnout among people of faith, or number 2, to see people who don't know the Lord in a personal way, to see them come to Christ. And so that's what I've told Christians. I say, it's great to go door to door for your candidates. Do that. It's excellent. But after the election is over, it's also okay to go door to door for Jesus and to invite people to your church or your parish and see what God's going to do. We really need revival and not outside the church, and with that, hopefully, we can turn California around. And sometimes God uses, historically and biblically, sometimes he uses, he shakes the earth literally. And we may, who knows, maybe something like that will happen in California, but I'm not counting on it right now. So.
Well, politically, it happened on Tuesday.
Quite, yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Politically, we saw definitely the ground shaking and around the entire country. But right now in California, in blue states, dark blue states in particular, we have horrific law. While red states are passing great laws of religious freedom and righteousness and protecting the preborn, blue states are doubling down on evil legislation requiring LGBTQ perversion being brought in all the way down to the first grade level in public schools. It's just letting babies be aborted even after they're born, up to 28 days after they're born. The mother can still have their child killed in California, and other states have adopted this.
And that's without question. They can't be investigated.
Without question.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no tracking.
There can be no investigation.
So we don't know how many times it's actually happened because they're not following that.
How many other states have picked up on that?
I'm not sure exactly how many. I know Oregon has. I think New Jersey has. New York, I believe. So a number of states have. Minnesota, Governor Walz's state has picked up on that, I believe, and they also, allowing legislation allowing kids to be effectively kidnapped and then brought to the state. Like if you kidnap a child in Texas, you meet them online and find out they're at 13, they're gender confused. If you kidnap that child, you don't even know the child, you're not related. You meet them in a park in Dallas and you kidnap them to California, you will not be prosecuted in California. California will not respect any prosecution from another state, which is unconstitutional. They won't be prosecuted if the reason you took the child was so that the child can have their body cut on masochistically, organs cut off, and quote unquote, and then distorted their gender. So that's evil. We have grotesque evil in California and other blue states right now. And I've never, since the Civil War, seen such stark differences. I think even greater than the Civil War, really, in many ways. Stark differences in terms of values, humanity, and just understanding of right and wrong in terms of legislation. So we at Pacific Justice, through our offices across the country, 36 more than any other organization, we're also not just in the courts. We're also helping the legislature help push back on evil legislation, but also help promote positive legislation with an incredible growing track record.
I want to make clear this 28-day thing for those who are not familiar with it. What the law says is that you cannot investigate a newborn's or an infant's death within 28 days after its birth. Is that about the substance of it?
That is correct. And the law says that the parent, the mother in particular, can have the child killed. This is with the doctor's assistance, okay? If the reason for it is pregnancy related. It's very, very, very broad. So it could be, I thought the child was going to be a boy and it's a girl. I thought the child was going to have blue eyes. It has brown eyes. The child has the child has Down syndrome, or the child has autism. Or I can see the child has a foot that's pointed in the wrong direction. Kill it. It's very, very sick. And this is what Governor Gavin Newsom of California advocated and signed into law. And we have abortion legal also all the way up to, for any reason, up to the moment the baby's born, partial birth, no pain medicine, no painkillers for this torturesome death of a baby right before it's about to be born. Very, very evil state, and that's one reason actually I did get earthquake insurance not too long ago, just because I'm thinking, and the people affirmed this in the ballots, this abortion at the ballot. So there's not just culpability with the state Supreme Court. No, it's with 3 out of 5 voters approved this, and so I think the culpability is very high, and we're definitely deserving the judgment, if not the discipline of God, in my opinion.
Now, let me ask you one political question here, and I've heard different takes on this. But Kamala Harris is from California. She was your senator. She was your attorney general. What is her political future now? Does she have any?
Yeah, I know what she thinks. She's thinking of based on her speech, you can see that she's keeping open the door for her running again in 2028. I think she is. That's very wishful thinking, because I don't think she understands how she is generally perceived in terms of her intellect or cognitive capacity or abilities. So, she may. I think she's thinking that. She's also has already vocally hinted several months ago that if things don't work out, she'll be running for governor. She could, the same way Richard Nixon did after he lost to John F. Kennedy. He ran for governor of California. He won, and then he went back again and ran for president. So she may be thinking that as well. She might win governor in California, but I think that there's. I wouldn't bet on it, because there's still a lot of Californians who see her in a different light now than they did when she was just serving in a low profile job of attorney general. So I think that she would definitely be challenged if she ran for governor. But we had the attorney general we have now is just as bad as she was. Total friend of Planned Parenthood, advocating for Planned Parenthood, aggressively advocating for abortion and Planned Parenthood. So there's a lot of blood on her hands, and I think a lot of Californians will for that reason and also other reasons of questioning competency, might be looking for someone else to occupy the office of governor.
Yeah, my opinion, I think I go along with Julian Epstein. Is that who it is? The commentator, Democratic commentator, that she's politically toast right now. And it would take a major resurrection to get her back. But anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
Excuse me. It's nice to visit with you again. We certainly appreciate all the times you've joined us over the past few years and past 11 years, I guess it's been. And we wish you well. And we want to remind everybody that if you're interested in helping them out or just want more information, it's pji.org?
That's right, pji.org. Also, if they'd like to arrange for myself or one of our attorneys to come to speak to their parish or their church, or they should not hesitate to give us a call. They speak without charge. They share. They can Sunday school class or whatever. We do that all the time for different groups, and keeping them updated. It's very interesting. Oh yeah, we do that all the time. I fly a lot to speak, and then
I know you fly a lot because I remember interviewing you when you were waiting for a plane one time.
Yeah,
and we could hear the announcements in the background.
Yeah, sorry about that, but yeah, I do fly a lot, and then also if people want to look at our resources, for example, we have an article called 12 Steps to Protect Your Children. Or a child from CPS or social workers. Every family in America should have that. It's too late if they wait till the social worker knocks on their door or calls them. Every family should download that. It's really clear, and that's available on our website, pji.org, as well as they can sign up to get our free e-newsletter, The Legal Insider, at pji.org, and they can be kept up to date what's happening on the front on these battles, and we have so many cases, and it's very brief, it's very short, once a week, pji.org, The Legal Insider.
Brad, you're doing God's work, and we appreciate it, and we thank you for the friendship to this program, and we will talk to you again. I promise that.
Thank you, it's been a real blessing to serve your audience, and we look forward to it in the future.
Thank you very much. All right, God bless you, Brad. We're going to take a short break right now, and we will come back to wrap up. You are listening to the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. This is Faith on Trial. And we're back to wrap up. This is You're still listening to Faith on Trial on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. I'm still a little slow this morning after being up all night watching election returns.
That's right. 2 days ago, we're recording on Thursday, so yeah, last night was a chance to catch up on sleep, but I don't think we did a very good job of that. Yeah, so it was fun to hear Logan from Catholic Vote talk about what's going on there and how involved they were through this election cycle. I'm look forward to and then I think it's interesting that Brad Dacus from Pacific Justice Institute also mentioned how important it is to get Catholic and evangelicals registered and to get them to the polls, because that's where the votes are missing. You know,
in the history of our program, since we've been on since 2013, the two guests that we had today are representative, very good representatives of what this program has been about and what it is that we need to do as Christians to, I guess, defend our way of life and our traditions and our religious beliefs against the enemy, which is really coming from someplace other than this earth.
That's right. And Logan mentioned it. Often many of our pastors and priests need to speak about this from the pulpit. She thought they did a better job this election cycle, which is great, but maybe it's a year-round thing, not necessarily at the heat of the election when they talk to when they preach to us about the importance of our being involved in our society that way.
Yeah. All right, I think we're pretty much out of time right now, so let's end with our Defender's Prayer. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. That's it for this week. We'll be back again with another edition of Faith on Trial next week. In the meantime, don't forget to go to church and take your kids.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Manno. Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio, iowacatholicradio.com, and the Iowa Catholic Radio app.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.